If you want to be trans, fine, be trans. Dress however the fuck you want. You want to call yourself a girl, whatever. But to demand someone accept you, to demand someone to call you something, to demand someone to do anything for you, especially a stranger, is just another level of entitlement that I don't think anybody in history has ever had. Maybe pharaohs or empresses.
Subscribe to this channel. In case you are watching this channel and you have not subscribed.
Anything can happen.
We're not gonna fucking eradicate anyone!
Outrage boiling over at the University of Buffalo.
Mr. Knowles calling for an eradication of transgenderism is a call for genocide.
Hundreds of students and community members gathered in protest.
Do you have anything else to say?
Chanting, picketing, and some even needing police restraint.
You want to tell me why I should leave? Because transphobia is beta behavior, and you are a beta male. You should leave.
Get out, man!
No, I'll take the mic.
I'm
Just
serious.
questions.
Get out.
I can't stand motherfuckers.
So
that
what
like
would
that.
cause a liberal lynch mob to attempt to shut me down and intimidate attendees before I uttered a word?
You fascist? You look like one.
Do I?
Yeah. You know, if we ask you a few questions.
No, I do mind. Thank you.
What?
My producer attempted.
Why do they always look like some fucking, like some anarchist type rebels, you know? They're all just, they got like 25 layers of clothes on, 35 face masks, some glasses, some fucking gloves. They always look the same. Oh, and a flag. They always got a flag on them. They get usually multiple.
To find out why so many people seemed hell-bent on keeping me out.
What brings you out here today?
And buttons.
There is a extremist speaker that is speaking at UB tonight.
I have some like transgender friends, and they were really hurt by like a lot of the news and like a lot of like what was happening. I wanted to like stand with my community.
I think you just perpetuate hate towards lots of people that don't deserve it.
Oh, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I think you're mistaken.
This many people are here because they don't believe in that hate. They don't want to continue the hate. We're here because we want to drown out the noise that he's making.
Have you ever...
Can we stop saying hate? Like, I know that we live in a time where words just all mean the same fucking thing, but hate is a pretty easy word to understand what the fuck it means. Can we just say like dislike or not approve of or any other word other than hate? Like the most extreme form of dislike? Just use a fucking different word. Dislike is not that much harder to use than hate.
watch one of Michael Knowles' speeches or seen his show in its entirety, not just like one of the clips?
I have not, no. I don't need to, though.
Man, fuck research. Ah, my fucking ads.
College students are often uninformed. That's why they're in college. They're supposed to get educated. But it seems they all had the same reason for hating me specifically.
For the good of society, and especially for the good of the poor people who have fallen prey to this confusion, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely.
A nice tie.
I have seen some of his comments about the trans community specifically.
Saying that trans people should be eradicated from our communities.
You shouldn't be saying that they should be eradicated if you have never been in their shoes. Can I just tell you, we're not gonna fucking eradicate any—
All right, so murder, rapists, murderers, child predators, all those people, unless you are in their shoes, you have no right to not like them. You have no right to have an opinion on any of them unless you have walked at least a day in their shoes. Fucking
anyone. You guys.
I don't want to eradicate anybody either.
He does.
Now, where could they have gotten that idea?
Numerous headlines after this speech said he wants to get rid of transgender people.
Basically just calling for the eradication of trans people.
Literally calling for a genocide.
Genocidal call.
What else could you possibly mean besides getting rid of those people?
Now, that was all news to me. I never considered myself a particularly genocidal kind of guy, but that's what the news said. Almost as if the entire liberal establishment had been intentionally lying about what I said. The university administration dug in its heels and did nothing to correct the record before my speech. Instead, the administrators doubled down on the defamation. Unfortunately, the university only allowed 300 people to come listen to this speech, even though about 1,000 people tried to get tickets. Now, among those who got in, there were a lot who liked what I had to say, but there were even—
I never went to college. Can anyone tell me like how this works? Does he just ask like the dean to come and speak, and then he has like what's those things? An auditorium opened up to where people can come and sit? Does he set the shit up in the background? Like Like, if y'all know anything about that, let me know, because I see this shit all the time where people like him, Kristen Hawkins, Matt Walsh, fucking, you know, just a bunch of like political speakers come to college and speak, and I just don't see how in the fuck they do, especially whenever it seems like the students don't like it. I mean, he did say there's 1,000 people that were interested in coming, but, you know, all the people that were protesting, that's what I'm talking about. Those are the people I'm talking about that don't like it.
Even a few who came in prepared to disagree with me. And they sat down not just to hear the speech, but sat down opposite me to hash out our differences in person.
When one calls to eradicate cancer, one is not suggesting that we ought to murder the cancer patients. So how did these liberal news editors come up with their headline that I wanted to commit a genocide of transgender people? Freedom itself cannot exist without limits. The question before us is not how free our society ought to be, but rather what will delineate the limits of freedom.
Becca, thank you for sitting down.
Of course.
Camilla, Karime, thank you for sitting down. You were outside of the auditorium with the protesters of this speech. Why were you protesting?
I was genuinely wondering how a man is going to explain how radical feminism is hurting women.
Did I convince you?
No, not really, no. I think you brought up some good points on like how there are certain types of feminism that aren't great, because there's always a radical something that's not good. There's always going too far and doing too little.
I saw your like poster also, and I was like, oh, it's just like, you know, like another speaker just coming in and like talking. And then I started saying like transgenderism should be eradicated. And as you know, eradicated it's a big word, you know, and
Eradicate. It's 5 syllables.
yeah. But you know, it could like be taken into like different things, like, you know, like to destroy and everything like that, and like to get rid of, which I think that's where you were going with.
That is very much, yeah.
Get rid of.
Yeah.
I have some like transgender friends, and they were really hurt by like a lot of the news and like a lot of like what was happening. I wanted to like stand with my community.
My argument is not, as some newspapers very irresponsibly reported, that I want to, you know, exterminate people or something. But my argument is that this whole idea of transgenderism is pretty new. You both have friends who identify in this way. There are many more people, right, who say, I am transgender. And so my question is, why are so many more people saying that now?
You said that like this, like being transgender is this new ideology.
Yeah.
It's not. There's evidence of people who were transgender in ancient Greece, Rome. Judaism is an example of a religion that acknowledges, I think, 6 or 7 genders.
I don't think that's quite true. And my evidence for that would be in the very first book of the Torah, in Genesis. One of the most prominent lines is that in the beginning, God created man, both male and female created he them.
It's not but Judaism, I think what the original translation, I can't cite my source right now, okay, but from what I've learned going to different like religious schools is that
Jewish schools?
Just synagogues, temples, I've tried and like experienced different religions. They said that
I went to with a friend one day. They had roller skating, you know, I just went to go.
The original text said Adam and Eve as in one being, one.
Well,
like,
man. So in the earliest chapters of Genesis, you have the creation of man in Adam. And then Eve is created from Adam's rib, but she would be the other sex. What you're citing is this line that a lot of people who are pro-transgender will say, which is, you know, actually in some Native American tribe that I can't quite name right now, I'm sure they believe in a third and a fourth and a fifth gender, but that just isn't true. That is that's been made up by white liberals.
You know the movie Mulan, Disney Mulan?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
Mulan, dresses as a man, right, goes to war. That's based off of true history.
Oh yes, cross-dressing has occurred in history.
Not just cross-dressing, but people who
in
went
Mulan, did the female character think she was a man?
No.
Oh, okay.
The problem isn't the fact that they want to dress like a woman or dress like a man. At least not with me. That's not the problem. The problem is the fact that they just want us to believe that they're a fucking woman when you're clearly not. If, like, I have no problem with trans people being trans. And I think that's the same with most people. I don't think anyone really has a hatred for trans. And if anything, they might think that they have something wrong in their head And I think a lot of the motherfuckers that are trans do. I think that they want attention, they need acceptance, they need love, they need something they never had, and I don't blame them. Like, that would be terrible to not have any friends or family to relate to, and that the only way you can get acceptance is to join these niche ass groups. And I don't blame them, but we got to start calling a spade and realizing what the fuck it is. Like, if they want to go to these groups for support and for love or whatever the fuck they want to go to, by all means. But don't expect the whole world to fucking follow with what you say. We live in a time where everybody wants to pretend like I'm confident, body positivity. I love who I am. This is who I am. If you don't like it, fuck you. Like, we live in that time. But yet, whenever someone goes against with what they say, they throw a tantrum. They turn into they get triggered. They fall apart mentally. You are not confident if that's the case. There is no world that we can live in where you could be a person that is liked by everybody. Mr. Beast is a prime example of that. That motherfucker does nothing wrong, and yet people still hate him. There is not a world that we live in where everybody can be loved, where everybody's going to agree with you, where everybody's going to see what the fuck you mean and what you believe. There's not a world like that. And yet they think that we can make it like that. And even if we could, why in the fuck would we want to? Why in the fuck would we want to be one person? Why would we all want to be one singular person? We would not accomplish anything. We would stay dead set where we are. Like, that's my biggest hang up on it, is that if you want to be trans, fine, be trans. Dress however the fuck you want. You want to call yourself a girl, whatever. But to demand someone accept you, to demand someone to call you something, to demand someone to do anything for you, especially a stranger, is just another level of entitlement that I don't think anybody in history has ever had. maybe pharaohs or empresses, you know, like there's no way in hell anybody prior to social media had the ability to feel this entitled. Maybe some, but a majority no. Definitely not on the scale that we have right now.
Why there's so many spikes and like people saying that they're transgender is because people are much more comfortable now, like going out and saying that they're like transgender, because they know that there now is like that community that will accept them.
What if they're not really comfortable though? There's a guy who pioneered the transgender surgery at Johns Hopkins. His name is Dr. Paul McHugh. And he created the Gender Identity Clinic, and he gave these experimental surgeries to men who thought they were women. And he ended up shutting it down because he said people were not more satisfied in the long run after the surgery. Is it possible that people expressing this transgender identity is not really making them all that happy?
No. Okay. Male transitioning into female. So my aunt, she was never happier than she was after she transitioned. So
it must have been her uncle.
Happy, like she's living her life now that she's transitioned. And you know, it's like, you never know. Like, what if they can't feel that way if they stayed how they were?
Not to be judgmental, but she said her uncle, or is her aunt now, but her uncle, I mean, there's always been that stereotype with uncles. No shade to her aunt, but...
Do you think that the person you now call your aunt, do you think that, I would say he, really is a she, it really is a woman? Or is it just kind of a little bit of a white lie that we all tell to make this person feel better?
No, I think it is, you know, like I think they actually are like female. You know, I think there's just some people out there that are just born in the wrong bodies.
Can I ask you a question though?
Please.
Like,
yeah.
Do you have kids?
Yeah.
Hypothetically, right, saying like if your kids want to transition and they tell you like they don't feel like how they...
Yeah.
How would you respond?
Well, I would hope that the likelihood of that happening would be greatly diminished because I would not be raising them in a culture that would encourage it. And so we do see, even if you think that there is a biological component to this gender identity ideology, we do see that in communities and ages that are more encouraging of it, you see the numbers of gender identity cases skyrocket. So I think the fact that we're raising our children in a more traditional kind of environment would at least reduce the possibility. more than 1 in 5 Zoomers.
I wonder what he would say though. Because I think about that all the time. I feel the same way. I want to raise my son in an environment that is gonna make him realize that that's not normal, and my daughter as well. But if they decide to do this shit in the future, can't say I'll wrap my mind around it, but I'm not gonna disown them. I'm not gonna hate them for it. Like, I might feel a little weird about it. I feel like that's fair. But I'll still love them. Obviously, they're my children, and I'll try my best to help them navigate through it, because maybe it's just like a phase they're going through, especially if they're under 20 some years old. Then I'm definitely gonna think it's just a phase that they're going through. It's not something that you should encourage your children to be, especially because everybody knows that teenagers go through phases, like whether it's an emo phase, a lesbian phase, or fucking the troublemaker phase, just some phases to rebel against their parents. I feel like that's pretty normal. And I think most kids probably do it with the transgender shit now. And I don't know, but I would assume so. Like, why in the fuck wouldn't they? I went through an emo phase whenever I was like 10, 11, 12. Was myself, you know, wore all black. I wanted to dye my hair black and shit. I lived in a really, really Christian household, and I just had a bad upbringing. But I went through that phase, and that's just because who I was surrounded by. It was not who I was at all. I didn't like the music. I didn't really like the way it made me. I didn't like the way I dressed or anything. It was just because of who I hung around, and that's what was normal. Like, that's how you got women. That's how you got girls back then. That's about it. the girls that I was knowing at the time were into emo guys. So I guess that's kind of why I did this shit. But regardless, like, everybody goes through phases, and to think that a child knows that they are a different gender, especially in their teenage years, is just really, really, you really have to have a childlike mindset to believe that. I just don't see how you can't think logically about how their brain isn't even developed yet. But yeah, I'm in that video there, y'all. Please like the video. If you want me to finish this video, let me know down below. And if y'all fuck with y'all boy, well, y'all please give me a subscription. With that said, deuces.
I won't speak up on it, but that's just how it's supposed to be. She thinks she leeching probably, but she won't get nothing from me. Say you let me, I doubt it. I'll fuck around and pay the fee. It's a whole lot of hate up in your eyes, and I can see it.
Hate all in your eyes, and you've been praying on my down.